What's up, passionate DJs, and welcome. Today we're having a look at the Pioneer DDJ-1000. This is a not quite brand new controller from Pioneer, but it is one of their more recent offerings, and it's significant because this is basically the first Pioneer controller that was designed specifically with Rekordbox DJ's performance mode in mind, as opposed to being sort of a repurposed Serato controller. In this video, we're going to have a look at this thing, we're going to give it a rating, and I'm going to tell you why it might be a good introduction to the Pioneer Nexus workflow for you. Now, I know this controller was highly anticipated and it's been out for a while now, but one of the reasons it's taken me so long to get around to putting a review out is because this one doesn't actually belong to me and it wasn't sent to me by Pioneer. This one actually belongs to one of our Passionate DJ podcast co-hosts, the mighty Mo Dingo, and he was kind enough to come over here. I'm sure you saw the unboxing video that we recently posted. He actually bought that, brought it straight here so that we could unbox it together with you, and then, you know, he's a busy working DJ, so he had a couple of gigs to play, and he wanted to get a little bit of field experience and then come back and talk to us about his experience with the controller. So Mo is on his way over, and we're going to go over to the couch and talk about that as soon as we're done with our basic review, and then we're going to talk about his field experience with the DDJ-1000. Now, as you can see, the DDJ-1000 is your basic standard layout controller with 4 channels, but it has these massive CDJ style jog wheels on either side, which is really nice. And I find myself to be a pretty big fan of this controller. I really like it. Now, it is important to mention that this is a DJ controller. This is not a standalone unit, so it's not a replacement necessarily for CDJs, other than the fact that you can prep all of your stuff in Rekordbox and then kind of play it on here at home, and then you could bring it to your gig with you, or you could export that playlist or whatever you're using to a USB drive, slap that into a set of CDJs, and then bring it on the road with you if you gig on other production equipment. That's going to be the big selling point for a lot of people, is that it's kind of an introduction into that whole Pioneer world of DJing, but it's really got a whole lot of features that I'd like to go over with you right now. Now, the first thing I do want to talk about is the quality of this thing, and one thing that I noticed is the weight, and it's really, it's heavy in a good way. It's heavier than most DJ controllers with this functionality, but it's not cumbersome. It's heavy in a way that makes you feel like it's got really good build quality, and I really appreciate that about this unit. Now, you really can't get away with talking about the DDJ-1000 without talking about one of its main selling points, which are these center screens here in the middle of those big jog wheels. So you actually get the full-size CDJ jog wheels, and then in the middle you've got your screens, which actually show sort of a Serato-style rotating line there that shows you your track position. You get your waveforms on there, you can see your cue points, you can see your loop information, you can see which deck is selected. It's really got a whole lot of information in just those tiny little screens there in the middle, and they're pretty high resolution, they're easy to read, they're clear, they're bright, and I really like this addition to this controller. Now, talking about the overall layout, everything's pretty much where you expect it to be. You've got your basic sort of stripped down DJM-900 mixer section here in the middle, with your EQs in the top, your trim or your gain there at the very top, and then your color effects here below the EQ, which lets you access your filters, pitch control, an echo effect, and a noise effect there. And then, of course, you've got your line faders down here, and a really nice Magvel fader here, a crossfader down at the bottom. And I've actually found this to be one of the better crossfaders that I've ever used on a straight-up DJ controller. It's really nice. You've got a sampler over here, you've got your headphones controls over here, and then you've got your decks on either side. Now, this is an asymmetrical layout because it is sort of meant to mimic that CDJ style of design. So, in other words, your tempo fader is on the right side of each, and your cue and play is on the left side of each, so it doesn't mirror, but you've got the same thing on either side here, so it's almost like you've got standalone players over here. You've got loop controls here in the top left of each deck. Right around the top here, you've got your quantize and slip controls. You've got your track browsing stuff here where you can scroll through your playlists and then click it in to load depending on which side that you're clicking. And one thing that I really like about this particular controller is they brought something from the high-end CDJs to this controller, and that is a jog wheel tension adjust, meaning that you can adjust the tension here of how loose that jog wheel feels, which is great for scratch or turntablism style DJs, or if you just kind of prefer a more stiff setting versus a loose setting, you know, people like to do backspins or things like that, you can dial that in perfectly to how you like, and it actually does work on this thing. You've got your cue and loop memory buttons right here, and nice long pitch faders, and beat pads, which are great quality, and then the kind of cue and play buttons that are clicky and feel basically just like CDJs. So everything is pretty much laid out, like I said, like you expect. The build quality is great, and overall in the quality category, I give this thing a 9. Now I'd like to make some comments about the practicality of this particular controller. Now we talked about the weight earlier, and the weight is good and appropriate for its size, though I do think the size is actually a bit large. That's kind of a trade-off that you get for having these actual full-size CDJ style jog wheels. There's not much you can do about that. You got to choose one or the other, and so I do have to bring the points down a little bit in the practicality corner just because of it being as big as it is. But really, it depends on what you're comparing it to. If you're comparing it to other similar DJ controllers in the price bracket, it's a little bit large, but if you're comparing it to a full CDJ Nexus setup, you actually save some room. So you can't be too harsh on it there. But speaking to practicality, you know, you've got these nice handles here on the side, which I'm trying to show to you, and that makes it really easy to pick this thing up and move it around, which is something I really appreciate. That's something that kind of gets neglected on a lot of controllers. It's just kind of a big rectangle, and you have to kind of stick your fingers under it. This gives you nice little ridges for you to grab that, and they're ridged on the other side, or ribbed, so that you can really feel them and get a good grip on that, and you don't have to worry about dropping it so much. Another thing that I appreciate on this controller is the power cord design, because it breaks out into a small box like this, so you don't have a wall wart and you don't have you know, a big giant box sticking off the back or anything like that. It's pretty small, and then it gives you your standard kind of power cord here that you can break out into, so it makes it easy to save a little bit of room up here and also get the heat and everything that's generated from this power supply away from the unit. That's something that I really like. Another great thing is all the connectivity options that you have on this controller. So if you look around here to the back, you've got 2 mic inputs here. You've got your dual USB, we'll come back to that. And then you've got your 4 channels, which are do accept external inputs, and you've got a CD in line, or a phono in line rather, so you can connect turntables to this if you want. You've also got your ground peg right there. You've got a balanced booth output in 1/4 inch, and then RCA master out and XLR master out, and then of course a Kensington lock for security there. And I really appreciate the inclusion of dual USB on this thing, because it makes it, you know, this is kind of the latest trend in DJ gear, and it's kind of becoming expected now, but it's not always included on, you know, actual DJ controllers that aren't standalone units. It's becoming more common, and I'm glad, because it makes changeovers easier, it makes B2B sets easier, and it's just an all-around great idea. Now, as far as B2B stuff goes, you do kind of want to be, you know, mixing with other Rekordbox DJs in this case, and so it's not going to be, you know, usable for everybody, but a lot of people use Pioneer stuff, and so it's not going to be a huge deal. And I actually tested this. What I wanted to know was, do you have to use Rekordbox DJ, or can you use one of the other kind of supported software packages on the USB-B slot, and would that work? And the answer is yes. I actually brought up Algorithms DJ software over here in the B slot and brought Rekordbox over here on the A slot, and had no problem mixing between them, which I thought was pretty cool. But it's important to mention that this thing is definitely meant to be used with Rekordbox. There are claims of support for things like Algorithms DJ software and Virtual DJ, but you're always going to have some kind of compromise there. Usually that comes in the form of your jog wheels not being as responsive. They might be a little laggy because they have to use MIDI mode instead of the high resolution mode that it would use within Rekordbox. Not all your display stuff will work properly, and this is kind of the experience that I had with Algorithm's DJ software. While I could get the sound coming out and I could get the basic functions working, some things just didn't work. The displays didn't show the waveforms. I couldn't skim around using the seek buttons, and so it was not quite the full experience that I wanted. However, I can't really knock points off for that because this is clearly marked as a Rekordbox controller, and anything else is just sort of a bonus. Now, I have read reports of people using this with Virtual DJ with pretty good success, though some things don't work. I think this little screen here that shows the effects settings doesn't really work in that software the last I checked. But other than that, like I said, it's really meant to be used with Rekordbox, so I don't want to be too harsh on it. And so, speaking to the overall practicality of this thing, it is pretty platform specific to Rekordbox, and so that is going to limit your audience a little bit. But overall, I'm going to give this thing an 8 because of all the functionality it really provides. Now next we talk about significance, and in this category I give it a 6.5. It has a little bit of significance in that it was specifically designed with the laptop version of Rekordbox in mind, but other than that it doesn't bring a whole lot to the table that we haven't seen from other controllers. So with that being said, we'll talk a little bit more about the design. I really appreciate, like I said, the full-size CDJ jog wheel setup, the stripped-down DJM-900 mixer. This is the audience that they're catering to. It's the people that want the CDJ setup, but they can't spend thousands of dollars doing it. This one goes for about $11.99. So it does cost a little more than some controllers, but really in the grand scheme of things, if you want to be in that Pioneer world, this is kind of an all-inclusive way to do it, and it comes with a license for Rekordbox DJ. Some things I don't particularly care for. One thing is, I've never been a fan of Pioneer's looping system. I just think there are better ways to do it. You've got loop in and out up here, and then you've got a shift button which you can use to adjust the in and out of the loop. Then you've got a 4-beat loop instant hit right there, which also doubles as your exit, and then you can hit shift on that to activate that loop. And then you've got your loop functions down here in the beat pad. They're just kind of all over the place, and I really appreciate the way that other manufacturers do this. For example, having a touch capacitive knob which lets you adjust the amount of bars per loop before you activate it, and then you can just click it in. All this stuff can be done with 1 or 2 knobs or buttons, and I think it's just kind of all over the place. And that's also sort of the story with the effects on this unit. You've got your basic DJM style effects section over here, and then you've got your sound color effects up here, and then you've got a bunch of different effects here for your pads. Not only that, but you've got a shift button which brings you to another set of pad effects, and so it's just kind of like, how many effects do I need? They're kind of all over the place. They do kind of serve different functions. The color effects are meant to be sort of one knob term things, and they're really best for stuff like filters. You can't really get rid of the DJM style effects, or you would just have Pioneer fans up in arms and there'd be a mutiny. And then the pad effects, they're more meant to be sort of one-off hits so that you can kind of perform them in the moment without thinking too much. So I get why they're all here, but I just think there's a lot of space taken up here by effects, and it sort of makes it a little overwhelming if you're not used to that. Now, all that being said, the pad effects are kind of fun, so I do want to go ahead and give you a demo of what this sort of sounds like. So I've grabbed a little loop here, and I'll just give you a demo of what these sound like. We've got a couple of stutter edits here. So that's what those do. Sort of a stutter edit that kind of keeps the music going there. We've got a filter out, reverb effect, and then sort of a turntable break. And then if you hit shift, you can actually activate another layer of pad effects which sound like this. some gate effects. And then on the bottom row, sort of a strange pitch change. Bit crusher. White noise. And then an echo out. So it's not like it's rocket science. I mean, you can kind of figure out where all the effects are and stuff if you spend a little bit of time with it. Not a big deal. I do have a little bit of complaint about the shift button, which is just really tiny, and it actually took me a few moments to figure out where the hell it was. It does have a lot of fun stuff to do. I really do like the design, and I give it an 8.5. Now let's talk about value. Like I said, this thing sells for $11.99. This is going to be a matter of opinion. It's actually a way cheaper way to get into that Pioneer thing, but you could compare it to other things in the market which do all of this and more, and $11.99 starts to look pretty steep. So while it's one of the cheaper ways to get into a Pioneer system, it's not an overall cheap solution, and so I think that makes it good for a 6.5. Now in the fun factor category, I give this a 7 because it does give you those fun pad effects and lots of effects options, but outside of that it doesn't do a whole lot in the way of, say, live remixing or sequencing or anything like that. But however, dual USB always opens lots of fun factor type things because, you know, being able to mix with a friend is always fun, and they could bring their laptop, slap it in there, plug it in, and basically all they have to do is switch this to USB-B, whichever channel they want to start using, and they could just jump right in and mix. So that makes things pretty fun. Now if you average this all out, it comes to a 7.6, which is a very respectable score, and this is going to be a great option, like I said, for anybody who wants to get into that Pioneer DJ setup, but they're okay with having their laptop because it doesn't work standalone. But once again, you can export to a USB stick and then bring it to a gig wherever you're playing. Alright, so Mo's going to be here any moment, so we're going to go over to the couch and get set up over there and talk to him about his experience with the Pioneer DDJ-1000. All right, Mo Dingo is here. Welcome, sir. So just wanted to kind of get your sort of final thoughts now that you've had spent some time with this on mobile gigs and as a working DJ. You know, I remember in the unboxing video you were talking about wanting to use this simultaneously with Rekordbox and with DJ, Algorithm DJ through Spotify. And so I just kind of wanted to see what your experience has been like and if you can share it with our review audience.
Yeah, for sure. So I think since we did the unboxing, the first thing I had immediately after that was a wedding. And with that, my whole goal was to DJ that entire wedding off of Algorithm DJ, which I was pretty successful, except for maybe like 1 or 2 songs. But it worked fine. I had Wi-Fi. I was connected through my hotspot. I didn't bother trying to use the house Wi-Fi because it was a wedding with 300 people. I couldn't take the risk of that signal getting degraded. I didn't really have an opportunity to get underneath the nuts and bolts and learn how to use the software correctly, but it did what I needed it to do because it's pretty intuitive. You don't get all the functionality out of the 1000 that you would if you use Rekordbox, mainly like the display things and some of the effects, but for the most part, it did everything I needed to do. The biggest challenge I had with using the Spotify integration is that Spotify is not very good about labeling explicit versus clean versions of songs. So I think one of the songs that someone requested was Shots by LMFAO, and it didn't say explicit, so I was like, oh, just F-bombs and whatever, and I was like, oh, so then I kind of had to get really keen with the mid knob and just dial it out every time. I'm up. I'm trying to
I'm in Miami.
Yeah. For what I do in the sellout DJ Dingo space, that stuff works perfectly. Now, after that I had a corporate event. It was a Christmas party, smooth sailing, like absolutely zero prep. Just got a Christmas playlist and just kept playing all the Christmas hits. Anytime someone requested something, I was able to find it because I don't have to worry about profanity in Christmas songs, unless it's like Death Row Christmas or something like that. Next opportunity I'm going to have to use this is for a CrossFit event. So this will kind of be like my trifecta of my working space.
I do have one question. When I was testing this with algorithm software, and I mentioned in the review, I'm trying not to be too harsh on any other platform other than Rekordbox, because this is clearly labeled as a Rekordbox controller. But like, I couldn't get the seek buttons to do anything, and I don't know if that was just something that I had going on, or have you actually tried like seeking through a track?
Oh no, I did not. So just the search to try and fast forward through.
Yeah, like the CD.
Generally, if I'm trying to do that, like if I'm trying to scan a song, I'll just use the mouse and click through the song. I've never tried to use the actual seek function. But like I said, when you're using DJ, you don't get the full functionality, and there wasn't anything clearly identifying what did and did not work. I kind of was like a trial by error.
So using it as intended with Rekordbox, what's your overall impression? And just with the general build quality and you know, now that you've used this in a working environment, what do you think of this thing kind of overall, to summarize?
I think if you're trying to get in that space where you're going to be using a Nexus setup, if you know, and you don't have $5,000 to dump on one at home, this is something good for muscle memory in terms of form factor, because the jog wheels are the same. To the best of my knowledge, all the knobology and buttons are the same, just like a DJM 900 as well.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and giving your thoughts on this thing. And you guys check out the Passionate DJ podcast at passionatedj.com. It's a weekly talk show where we talk about all things DJing. It's a show for DJs and by DJs, as they like to say. And our goal is to become better DJs through passion and purpose. And we'll catch you soon. Take care.